Here we go, episode 15 of Lucas Grandsire podcast. And this is a significant episode for two reasons. Number one, less importantly, it's the first time I've ever done a second podcast in one day. And second of all, it's concerning our guest, Lauren Murphy, the first woman to come on the show. When we have our own studio show and people are looking back at the history 2021, first woman on the show was Lauren Murphy. And you get to have that honor. So thank you for joining me. How are you?
Good. Thank you. I am honored. What an honor. Thank you.
You have the producers looking back and the people like, oh, how'd you get successful? It's like, we have historical people on the show, and that includes people like Lauren Murphy.
Well, thank you. I'm proud to be considered historical. That's badass.
Last time we talked about you getting this new dog, right? I believe Penny. Am I right?
Yeah, Penny's here with me right now. She's the one squeaking in the corner. She's my Doberman. And then this summer we got adopted by 100-pound Dogo Argentino. So she'll be in here for sure at some point. She'll hear us talking and she'll come wandering in. And she has no sense of personal space or depth perception. So I'm sure she'll come crashing into the interview probably within the next 15 minutes or so.
Well, the reason it's significant is also because I myself got a dog since the last time we talked. I saw everybody joining in on the fun, and I was like, finally, I had to get it done myself.
Congratulations. What'd you get?
I got a Weimaraner, which you mentioned not knowing the personal space and stuff. That describes it perfectly. I mean, you're on the couch, you have this, 35 pounds and only 4 months jumping up on you, doesn't care. I mean, it'll sit anywhere. It's no personal space concept with a dog like that.
They're like Velcro, yeah. And I don't know how Weimaraners are, but Dobermans are kind of neurotic. So like she's always up in your shit. She's real concerned about everything that's going on. Like if anything's out of place, she's like shaking. Like anyway, yeah, she's a very neurotic little girl.
He's smart, so he's at that point where he understands what I want him to do and stuff like that. But it depends if he feels like it or not, right? You'll be like, we need to go outside to use the bathroom. He's like, yeah, but it's raining. I don't feel like it. And it's like, hold on, you don't make the decision. Like you're 4 months old, you don't make the decision. I'm telling you that we're going outside. So it's a drawback to having a smart dog.
Yeah, are you gonna take him to training or anything?
Eventually, I'm probably gonna have to, because you get a little bit confident. You're like, right? It's like it's my first puppy since I was a little kid, but I'm gonna do it, right? I'm gonna go in the backyard and we're gonna learn to sit and stuff like that. But you reach the point where it's like, you know what? I'm not Cesar Milan. Eventually, I have to take the L and probably take him to see someone.
Yeah, we took our dogs to go to like a training course or whatever, and so one of the women that runs it is super nice, and one of the women that runs it is very abrupt. She's not mean or anything. She's just very to the point. She doesn't care who you are. She's going to tell you what's going on. The dog is going to listen. So, and it's hard for me because I spoil Penny. Penny's my dog, and I've had her since she was a puppy. And I mean, since she was like 8 weeks old, she like sleeps in bed with me, or she used to at least. I like got her own bed, so at least now she doesn't sleep in bed anymore. But she's just been spoiled and pampered her whole life, and I do that. Like that's why I have a dog, is to spoil my. I like spoiling my dog, and anyway, the dog training lady really gets on my ass about it. She said it's bad for her and to stop doing it, and so I've tried to stop spoiling her so much, but I don't know, what can I say,
The crazy thing when you have a dog like that, especially when you raise it, like we got ours at 7 weeks. I wish we could have gotten 8, but we didn't really have a choice. But you become kind of an expert, right? You know your dog. And the crazy thing is, we went to the vet the first couple of puppy shots, and it's weird because you think of your vet as like an expert, right? Like he should be telling you. And instead, I was explaining to them, like, they're like, what breed is it? It's a Weimaraner. What is that? It's like, oh, kind of starting on the wrong foot if I have to tell you like what I'm bringing you. So it was definitely a little bit weird doing that.
Dude, for sure. That's crazy. I would get a new vet. Yeah, I I honestly probably would. We haven't found a good vet here yet, actually. We just moved to Texas like a year and a half. Well, what's it been, like a year and a half now? Last November of 2019, we moved here. And we still haven't really found a good vet. I don't think I found a dentist really that I like. Like it's hard to shop around for all that stuff because you got to make appointments, and I don't know. It's just do they accept your insurance, and are they any good? It's hard to find stuff like that. So we're still shopping for a vet out here.
Well, one of the red flags was like, because with COVID, they take your dog, which is heartbreaking because you look at this little thing, you're like, I'm abandoning him, but they call you. And I was telling the vet, she's a woman. I was like, listen, we have issues with the puppy biting. They're constantly biting my hands and everything. What can we do about it? And, she's like, maybe see a trainer. And then when she brought the dog back, she had printed an article online, but it's like, I thought you were the expert. Like, you think I didn't do that? Like they said, check with your veterinarian. That's literally you.
Yeah. Yeah, the dog training place that we're taking him to uses these collars that they like they remind me of like a muscle stem machine. That's not like an electric shock, but it makes your muscle tense. And so I'll wear it on my neck and use it, just to make sure that it's not really hurting them. But the dogs don't like it, and it still makes me feel weird about using it. I don't know if I'm totally 100% on board with it. And it has like a collar that they put on, and then this like handheld thing where you push the button and it delivers like a stimulation or whatever to their muscles, and you can turn it up. It goes from like 1 all the way up to 100. And but if you put it on like 5 or 6, like they feel it. Usually that's good. So I don't know. Like I still feel kind of weird about it though.
Well,
What
my
do
uncle in France has that. I think he has 2 beagles and, he likes to, take them out to walk freely out in the country and stuff, and it's like, it'll beep one time to let you know, like, "Hey, come back over here," and then I think it's like the 3rd beep, it's like, "Alright, you're getting shocked," and so the dogs know by the 3rd beep, it's like, "Oh, man," they start sprinting 'cause they know, like, it's gonna happen.
That's a good system. My stepmom, I grew up with Labradors, black labs, and my stepmom had some black labs, and they had one of those electric fences put in around their house that like shocks the dog if it gets to the border, like so you could keep them in your yard or whatever off a leash. And the lab would sit near the border, and the thing would beep, and it was like a warning beep. Well, he would sit there until the battery ran out on it. It would beep, 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 and then when it stopped beeping, he knew it was okay to like go out and run because
Wow.
the battery would be, I know, smart, huh?
That's great. When I was little, we had a Cairn Terrier, and we tried to do the same thing. We're like, "Let's get the electric fence," but he had some issues. He wasn't the smartest dog, and he would just ignore it. He'd leave, continue to get shocked, and he kept walking. And I was like, "Well, okay, what do we do at this point? Like, if you're just gonna ignore it, like that's all we have."
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What can you do? Excuse me. See, and I know they get jealous. Like, I know that they're thinking sentient beings because, like, she gets really jealous. She comes and butts into the interview. She'll go grab, start squeaking it super loud. I know she just wants attention, just like a kid. So,
I noticed you don't have the ears done. Was that an option? Was that something you guys thought about, or were you guys clear like we're definitely not touching her ears?
yeah, I wouldn't do it. I like, she didn't have it done when we got her, so no, I wouldn't do it. If it had already been done, maybe I
Yeah,
would have got her, but I probably would have looked at a breeder that wasn't going to do that. I was told that their tails get so long that they break when they hit them
yeah.
on things, so that it's better to have their tails docked as soon as they're born. And even that, but there's just something about, I don't know, I don't like altering, like, I don't like altering people or animals. Like, this is the way God made them. Just keep them the way God made them. You know what I mean? You don't need to go chopping shit off or clipping
Yeah.
it. You know? It just kind of irritates me a little bit. So I would never clip a dog's ears like by my own choice. And I would have to have like a really good, like their dew claws even that get
Oh,
caught on.
yeah, yeah.
I would have like a good reason to start hacking stuff off when they're little.
Yeah, ours had the dew claws and the tail too. 'Cause hunting dogs, it's like it's not quite as short as a Doberman, but there's a certain length, and so his thing is he can kind of wag his tail, but he also wags his butt too. Like I know the dogs that don't have it, they wag the whole backside. But the dew claws, I didn't realize it left like a big scar. Like I know somebody was like, "Oh, there's a laceration on your dog," and I was like, "Did you notice there's four? There's four all in the same place?" Like, "Oh my god, yeah!" It's like, yeah, that's just a scar. I didn't realize. We didn't have a choice, but I didn't realize it was gonna be like that significant.
Yeah, I didn't really either. Sometimes actually this like on Penny's her dew claw scars are pretty rough. And so yeah, I didn't realize it did either.
Well, I looked up what it was because I thought it was gonna be something very scientific, you know what I mean? And then they're like, they grab scissors and they cut it. I was like, that's it. Like, I feel like I thought it was gonna be like, well, they put them under, but I thought it was gonna be something very like, and then we meticulously get in there. I didn't realize you just chopped it off. I was like, if I feel like I could do it, like that doesn't sound that great.
Yeah, I've never looked it up. I'm definitely, I mean, I'm not a dog breeder or anything, and
No,
I'm sure
that yeah.
there's stuff that I don't know, but yeah, I've never looked. But you have to think like we kind of do the same thing like as humans, like we chopping stuff off when our kids were born and stuff.
Yeah.
Even like when we pierce our kids' ears, we just take a needle and shove it through. Kids are doing it themselves. Like at least when I was going to school, there were kids always pierce their own ears and noses, belly buttons and shit like that with like safety pins or whatever. So
Well, that reminds me, third grade, I got my ear pierced, and then I had a friend who was like, I want to get mine pierced too, and he's like, can you do it for me? And we're in third grade, we're elementary school, and he grabs a needle and he's like, just do it. And I had to put it through his ear. It was awful. But next day at school, it's like that's the story, right? Like Lucas did it for me, my guy, and I was like, it was disgusting. I was like, oh my god. But we're boys, we're kids. Like it seemed like a good idea until we went through with it, and you realize like there's no going back.
Yeah, yeah. I got my tongue pierced. I had a lot of piercings before I started jujitsu. My ears were all pierced up. I had an industrial. I really liked having pierced ears, but I started jujitsu. I started training twice a day, so I'd have to take all my earrings out, and then I would get
Yeah.
done with practice. I'd put them all back in, and then like the holes and stuff were getting infected all the time. It was like I was always sweating, and it was just getting gross. It was like just easier to keep them out instead of trying to take them out and put them back in twice a day, for all these practices. And so anyway, I took all my piercings out, and I had a tongue piercing that I kept in for a really, really, really long time. Even after I started fighting, I really liked having a tongue piercing. But once that thing heals up, you don't want to get it re-pierced. When I very first got it pierced, I broke the barbell that was in there, and so I went to go get it re-pierced like 2 days later. It wasn't even that long, and it had already healed up. And so they re-pierced my tongue after it had already healed up, and I literally sat on that table and cried, like just cried. It hurt so bad. So anyway, when I
Uh,
was fighting, I pulled my tongue ring out, and once it healed up, I said, never again. I'll never do that again.
well, I mean, even for the ear piercings too, like with the cauliflower ears, right? I assume like you sort of accept that, nothing's gonna be in the cartilage because you're gonna have these big, cauliflowers in there.
Yeah, I don't know. Like some people don't get cauliflower ear, which is kind of weird. I've met a lot of wrestlers and like longtime grapplers, and they're just like, nope, I've never gotten it. I don't have cauliflower ear. But like I have a little bit. Let's see what side. It's on this side. Yeah. I have a little bit, but I've never gotten it too bad. But my husband, his ear looks like a wonton stuck on the
Oh
side.
yeah.
It's like he can't even wear like the earphone. Hey, chill out. See, they get jealous. He
Yeah.
like the earbuds because nothing can go in his ears. It's so swollen. He has to wear like
Yeah.
the big headphones and stuff. So yeah, his ears are ducked up. But if you're
Yeah.
a fighter, yeah, you're right. You have to just kind of accept that shit like that's gonna happen. Like you're gonna be getting your face punched and ground into the mat daily, or at least I do. I don't know how others do it, but that's what my practice usually looks like. And getting my ears boxed up and like there's just I don't I think that there's just not a lot of time if you're a serious practitioner and you're practicing a lot. There's not a lot of time to also be like getting yourself beautified all the time. For me, at least, I don't know. Some of the girls are able to do it, but I'm not. So I guess good for them. But
I've heard of some wrestlers because, like, I guess the cauliflower is a status symbol, right? Some of them will like slam their ears into a door early on because they want people to see them and think of them like, oh, they're legit. They've got the cauliflower.
oh, really? That doesn't surprise me.
But I'm seeing like that's something like in the media, a lot of MMA journalists like they're looking for a story. They'll do something on cauliflower where they'll ask fighters about draining it and stuff. It's always a fun thing 'cause I don't think people realize like and once you notice the cauliflower ear, I went through a period when I first started watching MMA where I was looking at everybody's ears. I was like, oh my god, like I didn't even realize cauliflower was a thing, and I'd be out in real life looking at everybody's ears, and in real life I met one person who had it, and I was like, all right, don't fuck with that guy.
Yeah,
Like, because you don't get that by chance. Like, that's the guy. Like, you leave him alone. He wants something, you help him out, but do not and don't say nothing.
I know. Do you remember, was he a big guy or was he a little guy?
No, he was good size. He seemed a little bit weird, but I was like, look, man, I'm about to mind my own business. Like, that's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah, you don't know anymore, man. If like you run into somebody in public, somebody you've never met, like maybe like you run into somebody or like have some sort of altercation with somebody, you don't know anymore. That person could be a fucking black belt
Yeah,
and be the most unassuming person. You just do not know what you're getting yourself into. One time, before Sean like really blew up, Sean O'Malley, I lived in Arizona. I was training at the lab. He was training at the lab, and we used to hang out sometimes. Like, hey, sit down, sit. He even like rented a room from my husband and I for like a really short period of time when he was an amateur. So we used to hang out, and we were walking through the store one time, and Sean was wearing some like shorts, like I think they were like pink shorts with flamingos on them or something like just some silly shorts, And this guy like was standing in the checkout line and kind of like looked Sean up and down and was huh, kind of ballsy wearing shorts like that, don't you think? And was
uh,
just kind of rude to him about it. And Sean, of course, was like, "What?" Like was just kind of caught off guard and then ignored him or whatever. It was like, you honestly do not know who the fuck you are talking to.
yeah.
Like it's just nuts, Now like Sean would probably get recognized by that guy if he went into Walmart. Yeah, you just literally you never know. So
Yeah, especially Sean. It's like, could you imagine you see him knock out Eddie Wineland? It's like, oh my god, I just talked shit about his flamingo shorts like that. That could have been me, and that would have easily been you too. Like, you would have done nothing to stop him either.
I I know. And that dude probably doesn't even know like how much of a jackass he actually made of himself that day. You know what I mean? He'll probably never know, but yeah, it's just some of the most unassuming, like peaceful looking people that I've ever met. I have met on jujitsu mats, and they are bad mother.
How is Sean behind the scenes? I've interviewed him twice, and I feel like he doesn't love doing media. You know, he's one of those guys. Like I feel like he's a little bit reserved, and for good reason, because you reach a certain point where guys are trying to pull certain quotes out of you. But how is he behind the scenes? Does he come off the same way as he does in these interviews, or is he totally different?
I don't know because like in some of his interviews that I've seen, I feel like he is just normal Sean, like having a conversation with somebody. I don't know because I don't watch like all of his
Yeah,
interviews.
that's true.
Um, like so just like if you were to go to the gym and go to practice with him or something, like he's just a good goofy kid. Like I guess he's not a kid anymore, like he's a fucking grown man now, but
Yeah.
he walks into the room and he'll be like, hey, what's up? And then he gets kind of goofy, like he brings the energy level in the room up a lot. He makes a lot of people laugh. He's a really good athlete, so he's like keeping pace with the best guys in the room. He's pushing the best guys in the room, and he's always got a good attitude while he's doing it, like talking shit, making fun of himself, making fun of other people, just making goofy noises and kind of being like just a goofball. He's a naturally really funny dude. So, and then watching him practice is something really cool, man. He works really hard, and he's very artistic and he's very athletic. So it was really cool sharing a room with him. But mostly when I think about Suge, I just think about how funny and goofy he was. Like he's just such a funny, goofy guy. Now he's got a kid of his own, so but he was always really good with kids too.
Yeah, Sean, I mean, I had a good impression with him because one time I texted him so we could do an interview, you know what I mean? I had never texted him before. I just happened to have his phone number. I was like, let's see how that goes. And he was like, hey, man, I'm available in 10 minutes if you are. So I was like, oh, shit, got the laptop out and everything. And we just knocked it out and it ended up being the most watched interview I've ever done. So it was like, wow, like, we went ahead and knocked that thing out. And it was like, and it was crazy how it blew up. And it was before the Eddie Wineland fight. So it makes sense he had all that hype. But yeah, Sean is becoming a real star. Like, if he can, obviously, the weird stuff in his last fight. But if he can get things back on track, like he's going to be up there with some of the biggest names in the sport.
Yeah, he when he first came to the lab, it was around the same time I first came to the lab, and so we kind of came up like at the lab at the same time. Even though I was well into my pro career, and he was pretty well into his amateur career by then, I think. Still, we like grew up at the lab a little bit, and anyway, like he taught me so much about like mindset. It's unbelievable because he like we came up together and then I watched him like really get involved in like what it meant to like have self-awareness and mindfulness. He started meditating. Like before sparring I would see him doing like breathing exercises. I didn't know what he was doing, but he had a lot of confidence. He talked about like speaking stuff into existence and stuff like that, and just had a really positive attitude. And so at first I was like, well, we'll see. Like, this isn't really, like I just had my own fucking shitty attitude, and I watched it literally before my very eyes, like work for him, And so it changed my mind a lot about stuff like that. And I started meditating mostly because of Sean and Tim, and just started doing a lot more like mindfulness practices. And I think it's changed me so much and just improved my career so much. And honestly, it's because of those guys like setting such a good example for me. So that's like the other thing that I really associate, I think, with Sean, and then also with Tim Welch, his coach.
How's your relationship with people at the lab? Because I know sometimes you leave a team and some people they're able to sort of sit down and understand, right? Like, it might be best for me or, moving somewhere like Texas. And some people they take that personal, where it's like the rest of your career, it's like you have people that hate you because you left them, they took it personal. But how's your relationship with everybody over there?
Well, there's a lot of people at the lab. It is a really large gym. And I'm still friends with some people there. There's like some people there that I thought were my friends that aren't really my friends, and I kind of found that out when I left. And then there's people that I thought didn't really weren't really my friends that I've kept in touch with, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so like I guess it just kind of goes to show you like all my ideas and thoughts and notions are worth about 2 cents. But no, I made some really good friends while I was at the lab, while I was an athlete at the lab. We had a group of women there that I got really close to. I don't know, like 5, 6, 8 women, something like that, that we all became pretty tight, and I keep in touch with them still. In fact, I'm going back to Phoenix at the end of the month. My husband goes there once a month, every month. for reserve duty. And so at the end of this month, I'm going to go with him and go visit everybody and say hi for a couple days. And I'm going to go to Tim's gym and get some work in. I like going over there to roll, and maybe Tim will hold some mitts for me or something. So I still keep in touch with people from there, but not everybody. You know, like you said, like there's definitely been some strained relationships, and some of the relationships we've just completely cut out of our lives. But that's okay, you know. That's life. Change happens, growth happens. Yeah, it's all good. I don't have like any. I don't. I don't really have any resentment towards anybody there. I don't think. You know.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like you see some people, it's like they're able to sort of sit down and talk about things, and some people can understand like it's bigger than you. You know what I mean? Like as a fighter, like at the end of the day, it's about you, right? Like everybody acts like the team and stuff, but you go out there and you lose 3 fights by vicious knockout. It's like at the end of the day, it's about you, right? It's your UFC career, so you have to do what's best for yourself at that point.
Yeah, you got to do what works for you. And man, moving to Texas has obviously been the right move for us. And you're right. Like that's it doesn't say anything about anybody else, but the coaches that I have out here, I'm very close to. I love working with them. We get along really, really well. Our personalities just mesh together really well. I can hear them very well, and obviously, whatever they're doing is right for me. So there's a lot of athletes that stayed at the lab that are super successful, and it's because of the lab that they're going to be successful. Just not for me. I have to have something different, and that's totally perfectly normal. Like all athletes are going to be different and need different things. So I think I found what I needed out here, and I'm really happy. And I'm really happy with the time that I had at the lab too, because I did learn a lot out there, and I got a lot better by training out there, man. And in a way, it did give me confidence to train at the lab, because it's such a tough room. Like honestly, the lab fight team is so fucking tough, and that room is full of like full of high level world class athletes. Just like training in there for 5 years straight, I feel so proud. Like I know I could hang anywhere, because I did that time at the lab. I'm like, nope, no room in the world is going to be tougher than that place. Seriously. So yeah, I think to me it's all good, and I choose my attitude about it, and we can all choose our attitude about it, and I choose to be really grateful, and I'm grateful for where I'm at, and I'm grateful for what I had, and I'm happy where I am.
And so when fighters they switch teams, like I know there's like an adjustment period, right? Because you do have to build a certain level of trust, whether it's with your coaches, your training partners, and stuff. Like some guys, like Uriah Hall, we saw him join Fortis, also in Texas, and they hit things off right away, got the ground running. How long did it take for you to sort of build a relationship with your team and your new coaches at this new gym?
Well, so one of my coaches is named Alex Cisne, and I've known him for a long time. I actually trained with him for a year before I ever went to the lab. So I trained with Alex, and he took me through my entire Invicta career. He and another coach that I was very close to. So I had known Alex already. He had worked with me as an athlete. And when I left him, or when I met Alex, I had only been training about like 3 years. And so when I left him, I went to the lab. That's the same year that I got into the UFC. And I wasn't even half the athlete then that I am now. So I feel like I kind of went away for a while and then came back to him, a much better athlete with a lot more experience. So I've known him for a while. He's a really what's the word I'm looking for? He's very calm. Like nothing gets him very excited. He's
Yeah.
just chill dude. So yeah, when I moved back to Texas, we started working together immediately. In fact, I called him from Arizona and I was like, hey, can I come work with you for a camp? Like, I think I need to make a change. And so he was like, of course. I met Bob Perez in 2019. I came out here to work with Montana, and he was cornering Montana for one of her fights in the UFC. I forget who she was fighting. I think she was fighting Andrea Lee. And so Bob Perez was one of her corners. I went to go spar with Montana, and he was there like to help her with the sparring thing. And he and I just hit it off right away. For whatever reason, we just clicked. We were speaking the same language. I really, really liked him. He really liked me. I told him like, I've never really had a consistent striking coach before in my whole career. Like Alex was kind of the only one. And Bob's jaw just like dropped open. He was like, what? You've never had a consistent striking coach? I said, no. I mean, I've worked with a lot of different people, but nobody consistently, and I was like, I need one, and he was like, yep, I'll be your coach, no problem. So when I moved to Houston, the other good thing about those guys that makes me trust them a lot is that they work together very well, even though they're from different schools. And I love that. And you don't find that in a lot of coaches.
So when I do, normally I do interviews, I do like a 10, 15-minute thing with a fighter. We're either talking about your upcoming fight, your past fight, or whichever one it is. With this podcast, I like to dive into more more behind the scenes stuff too, because I feel like people they don't hear a lot about what happens. And I always like to ask fighters about their relationship with the media, more specifically the MMA media, just because I'm curious about how it is. And I feel like you could probably give me the most interesting answer for this because you have like I feel like you're all over the place with that, right? You have great relationships with some people, others not so much. But how's your relationship with the MMA media?
I think it's okay these days. Like you were talking before I came on the podcast, you were like, I'm not gonna like fucking trap you into something. I'm not trying to get like a gotcha moment about Eddie Alvarez or whatever. And I think honestly, after that whole shit last year with the headline and me kind of like fucking putting my foot down and freaking out a little about it, and then going to Fight Island and it coming up again and me telling everybody basically shut the fuck up about it, I think you guys got the message. I'm pretty sure like the media in general kind of got the idea like I'm moving on. We're not gonna like that's really old news now. This is a whole new era. And since then I feel a lot better about everything. Honestly, like walking through that stuff last year, it was really hard. I actually got really depressed for a couple months about it, but like it also made me grow a lot, and it gave me a lot better idea of what the media in general is looking for, what you guys are trying to achieve, why you're trying to achieve it, and like how I could work better knowing that that's your goal. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it actually turned out to be like a good thing. And I've stopped thinking that the media is just a bunch of like cocksucking liars or whatever. Like I stopped hating the media so much too, because I think at the end of the day you guys do love what you do. You're passionate about your jobs, you're passionate about the fighters and the fights. And like I said, like you guys are just trying to make a living yourselves, and this is like we can help each other. So I think once I changed my attitude a little bit about it, it got better. But yeah, definitely in the last year I think I've gotten the point across.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, winning a couple fights in a row has helped too. Like I've gotten a little bit of respect now. I feel like people have finally started to put some respect on my name. Like in my mind, I think I deserved that respect all along, but now I've finally gotten to a place where like people are like, okay, like you can't deny it anymore. So
Well, I think even with fighters in the media, you sort of like I mean there's so many different people like you have like the biggest media members like Ariel at ESPN, so like somebody you never heard of working for a website you never heard of, and you sort of when you do enough of them, you have an idea of like what's whose goal, like you know what I mean, like certain people they're gonna look for the big headline to get the clicks on the article. Some people it's gonna be maybe more laid back, like you sort of get an idea right of like what kind of interview you're gonna get with which sort of media members.
yeah, yeah, that's a good point too. And maybe just like figuring out who like the end goal for each media member. And yeah, that's a good point too.
Well, I know that there's some fighters. What they do is like Jeff Neal, for example, is a great example. His thing was like, if you interviewed me on my rise, then you're one of my guys, and if you reach out, we'll do something. But if you weren't there when I was starting out, like now, if you try to talk to him before the main event, he's like, nah, fam, like it's not happening. You're getting left on red. Like so I know some fighters. Everybody has their different thing, right? Like it's either you were there from the start, you took an interest, or you got to prove yourself later on. But I know everybody has different things. But I assume when like an ESPN or a TMZ comes, no matter like where you stand on who's doing interviews with, like that's such a huge platform. It's kind of like, maybe we give him a shot.
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. And I don't know, that's kind of like I said, like you guys have a job to do. So holding resentment because like I didn't get attention earlier in my career is just going to end up being counterproductive to myself. You know what I mean? So there's definitely journalists that like if they like screw you over, I wouldn't work with. Like if they're, publish something shitty about you or break a promise to you, or they leak something that was supposed to be confidential or whatever. If somebody does something like that, obviously that's a different story. But if they just didn't give you the attention you wanted, like in my mind it's almost like a challenge. It's like, okay, I'm going to prove to you that I am worthy of the attention that I feel you should have been giving me all along.
Yeah, do you enjoy doing interviews? 'Cause I know some fighters like their biggest complaint is you guys ask the same shit every time. It's like 10 minutes of how do you like the matchup, blah blah. They're like some guys think it's super boring. Others are like it's part of the job. I do it. Well, where do you stand? Do you enjoy doing it at all?
I don't mind it. I want to get better at it. I kind of look at it like a challenge, like a competition, almost like I do want to get better at it. And I used to be really nervous about getting on camera. So I've gotten a lot better at that. And I think it's just another way of kind of judging where I'm at and having something to work on, to be honest with you. So I don't mind them. It's just another way of like measuring growth. But, uh, yeah, during fight week it could get a little repetitive and it could get a little annoying. And it is hard because sometimes the media does like plant little like bombs, like little landmines for you to accidentally tread on, and then something blows up in your face that you didn't see coming. And so that could get a little irritating. But you know, even when that kind of stuff happens, like I have to ask myself, like I remember being in Alaska and training at a very small gym and fighting locally, and I would read about these women that were making headlines with these MMA sites, wishing that I were one of them at that level. So, um, yeah, I think you can always find the silver lining, probably.
Well, I feel like especially when you're at MMA lab, that was kind of like a not dangerous, but you train with a lot of people that were in your weight class. People like Courtney Casey, who I know moved up recently, but Mackenzie Dern and stuff. I feel like when you have training partners in the same weight class, people try to like egg on a little bit, like would you ever fight your training partner, would you this, and I've seen beefs happen because guys have asked those kind of questions and one person just said something without thinking real quick, and then all of a sudden it's like we created, something happened that was created just because one person answered off the cuff real quick and really didn't take the time to come up with a diplomatic answer, like it's my training partner and we have a code and blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah, and stuff like that could take you by surprise. And like we're fighters, right? So we're not used to. A lot of us aren't used to like talking to a camera. A lot of us aren't used to doing media. I mean, the bigger you get, I guess, the more used to it you get. But when anywhere from mid-level to like lower level, yeah, you could totally get caught up in some interview, and then something is a headline, and then it's interpreted this way, and somebody else passes it to you and says this, and it's like pretty soon nothing has been blown up into this big giant beef. And yeah, that's definitely happened a few times. I'm sure. It's hard enough. Fighters are crazy enough as it is, and we're all competitive, and everybody wants to be the best in the room. And there's always, the bigger the team gets, the more personalities you have. So, yeah, and then add the media on top of it, like.
But what I appreciate about the fighters is just how accessible you guys are, right? Because even doing something like this, like you don't have to do that. I could reach out and get left on red, or like, nah, man, I don't feel like doing that. You know what I mean? Like fighters, they do so much extra media, and some of them it's like I want to get my name out there, but a lot of it is just like out of the goodness of their hearts. Not sound corny, but it's like there's a lot of extra stuff you guys do and how accessible you are, where you do so much extra, especially if you compare it to like other sports like football. People don't even like answering questions. They do media because they have to, and they get fined if they don't do it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I don't follow any other sports, so I don't know how it works. And I honestly, when you put it like that, I guess I don't know why other fighters do media, but I know that like it's a kind of a challenge and it's good practice, and I don't think it's hurting me.
With and I'm curious about it. We because I think I was one of the first people to talk to after the stuff happened with MMA fighting and all the talk of Eddie Alvarez. Which I'll be honest with you, I was not ready for all that. I didn't realize oh my god, what did I just walk into? Uh, have you fixed all that stuff? Like, can you say like, oh, we're cool with those people, figured it out, or is there always going to be some kind of barrier? Like, hey, listen, guys, like you fucked up. Like it's over.
Yeah, I mean, those guys aren't my friends. Like, if those were
Yeah.
friends of mine that had done something to like hurt me, then it would be like, okay, I'm willing to talk about this to you. Sorry, that's my dog. Uh, I'd be like, if they were friends of mine, I'd be willing to work on it to save the friendship, I guess. But yeah, I don't know those guys, and they kind of fucked me over like a little bit. They really like humiliated me. They took advantage of an interview that I did with them. They took advantage of their position in the media, and it was just a shitty thing to do. And like I said, I was kind of depressed for a couple months. Like, that's a big deal. Like, you can't treat me like that and then have that effect on me, and then you get to act like it's nothing, or just act like it's your job. Like that, it just really minimizes the actual impact. And like, as a journalist or as a reporter, you want to have a big impact. Literally, your job is to make an impact. So don't tell me that you didn't know it was going to have a big impact. You know what I mean? Like, um, uh, so yeah, I guess just from the way I'm talking about it, obviously I still have resentment, but I blocked Stephen Morocco, and I think I blocked like Jose Youngs or whoever else like did that interview with me. There's some people at MMA fighting that I'm cool with. I really like Mike Heck. He's always been good to me. I love his interviews. I watch his interviews that he even does with other people because I just think he's a good
Yeah.
journalist. Casey Leydon, I still like respect him a lot. I like him. I think he's a good dude. I don't think he like meant to go out of his way to like cause any harm, and I don't know if that's true for those other guys that were involved, but
I know I did listen to that podcast before I ever talked to you because yeah, I saw like Lauren Murphy was a guest. Like, oh, that's interesting because I know Lauren's pretty good at doing media and she's usually interesting. So I was like, a podcast like they're just gonna do well. And because, I saw everything unfold, right? Like I listened to it and then I see the headline. I think what frustrated me though is that the podcast was very good. And then it was someone outside of that podcast that created an article and turned it into something, right? It's like one guy ruined it for those people, right? Because, the podcast is very good. I'm sure they'd ask you again to come back. But now this one guy writes an article and that ruined it for all those other people who, just mind their own business and answering fan questions. I think that's the thing, right? They didn't even ask you. It was like, hey, a fan wants to know about Eddie Alvarez. So it's just crazy how people can ruin that for everybody else.
Yeah, it really took me by surprise, and I took it really personally. I was like, man, I thought these guys liked
Yeah.
me. Like I thought we were like friendly. Like, why did you do this to me? And it took me a long time to kind of stop taking it personally. Like I think Stephen Morocco was just looking for an easy headline. He was just looking for like a easy little bit, like an easy pop on Twitter, and he got one, and it was at my expense. And partially it is my fault for, talking to the media the way that I did. Like I have to look at that. Like, even though I didn't mean any harm, it was taken out of context, blah, blah, blah. Like it was still an opportunity for me to be like, okay, I know what the media wants. Like they want headlines. They want to make an impact. I said something stupid, you know what I mean? And I just, yeah, that was their opportunity and I gave it to them. So it was a good lesson for me and it did pass. At the time, when you're going through it, like anybody that's ever been dragged on Twitter, when you're in the middle of it, it feels like it's never going to end. You feel like the whole world hates you, or at least that's how I felt. Like the whole world hates me. All of this is for nothing. And it was kind of crazy too, because I had herniated a disc in my back a couple, like 2 weeks before I fought Andrea Lee. It was actually like 12 days. And so I was like really fucked up from it. Like I couldn't touch my toes fight week. Like I was really fucked up from like I blew out my back right before I fought her. And so I fought Andrea Lee. I fought my ass off. I got booed after that fight for the judge's decision. And I was in Houston, right? And so that was kind of hard because I was like, fuck, I love Houston. And I just moved here and now I'm getting booed and I fought my ass off and with an injury. So then I went to go get an epidural shot in my back to help heal it or whatever an epidural shot does. And I got out of the surgery center. And when I got home is when I opened the thing and Stephen Morocco had like published that headline. And then I started getting all this hate and I really just had this overwhelming feeling of like, what am I doing this for? Like, I'm over here literally doing the best I can do. I did like a good interview. I had a good fight. I had a great training camp and all these things like seemed to be like happening to me. You know what I mean? I didn't understand like, how, like why I felt like I was working so hard and then having such poor results. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it felt like at that time. And then, you know what? I like really made a conscious effort to change my attitude and we ended up having an awesome 2020. But it started off a little rocky and I'm not going to lie. Like that was a hard thing to go through. It was a hard time.
I know exactly what you mean when you say that because as media, like right, I'm not the biggest name. You grind and you try to do your best to get up there, and you do have moments where you're like, what am I doing this for? Like, do I enjoy doing this, but I suck at it, and I haven't quite had that time yet. And it is like you mentioned, it is frustrating. Sometimes you sit down and it's like, why am I working so hard if I'm not getting to the point I want to? So I definitely understand what you mean by that.
Yeah, it was hard for a while. Like I said, I was depressed for a while, but like I do have a sports psychologist that I talk to. I'm married to the best man in the world, Joe Murphy. He's the husband everybody wants. And I have a really good support system with good friends. And I have good coaches too, like Bob Perez and Alex Cisne are good coaches. And part of the reason I'm close to them is because I can talk to them about this kind of stuff. And so I was able to work through it and get different perspectives from people that love me. I have a lot of like tools now to use to like change my mindset and like try to think things are happening for me instead of to me. And it took a while during that time period, but it happened eventually and my attitude did change. And now like I don't feel so angry anymore. Like, I don't want anything to do with those journalists, but it's not keeping me up at night anymore. Like I can sleep at night. I know. Yeah. So anyway, I do have a good support system and it's just nice to kind of have those resources as a professional athlete, because a lot of times what I hear is people will say, well, as a professional athlete, you're just going to go through those things. Like, I think it's just normal for professional athletes to get hate from the public. And it's like, well, it is true, but it still affects us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And we still need ways to deal with it. And so luckily I do have a lot of like a really good support system. And like, I'm learning more tools on how to deal with all that kind of stuff.
Well, the funny thing is, we did an interview like right as you were in the thick of all that, like, I didn't, I was following along. I didn't realize it was that deep. And like the interview gets a lot of views. And I was looking at the comments. I was like, good Lord, people are toxic. People are coming after you and people were saying stuff to me, like trying to buddy me. It's like, guys, I'm not talking to Lauren Murphy because I have to. I wanted to. Like, stop trying to act like I'm against her or something. The comments, it was like, I'm reading everything. I'm like, you guys are so toxic, like coming after everything. I saw one person was like, Lauren steals dogs. I was like, are you serious? Like, did she not just explain to you how she got her dog? Like, she didn't even want to keep it. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, you do get an exceptional amount of hate. I do have to say, just seeing things on my end.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I do, but I don't want to be any other way. I mean, I'm an opinionated person. I'm loud. I'm like, I have a strong personality, and I understand that in life that's going to grate some people the wrong way. I understand that I'm going to rub some people the wrong way, but I don't want to be any other way. I don't want to be quieter. I don't want to be meeker. I don't want to keep my mouth shut. Like, I just don't want to live like that. You only get one life, and I'm not going to spend it, trying to please everybody else. Like I'm not saying I'm going to be an asshole, but like, I'm not trying to bend over so that other people can just walk on me either. So I understand that it's going to grate some people the wrong way, but it's never been who I am. I'm just not a quiet person. I don't think I ever will be.
Well, the crazy thing is people are telling fighters, don't be quiet, create a personality, go out there, get attention. And then you guys do it. And it's like, oh, not like that. Like, Lauren, that's not what we want. And it's like, what do you want? Like, if you just were like, after every fight, like, oh, I'm just so happy with this one. Give me whoever's next. Like, people would look right past you. But, you have hate. But you know what? People are paying attention. And, it's like, what do you want? You want fighters to have a personality, or do you want everybody to just be bland after everything?
Yeah, because then those fighters still get hate, and the fans go, oh, they're boring. God, they're exciting about them, blah, blah, blah. They want Conor McGregor's and they want Ronda Rousey's. And what made those athletes special was that they could talk shit. They could back it up. They were bringing crowds in because they were so entertaining, and people loved them, and people loved seeing them fall too. The very first, when Conor first lost, and then when Ronda first lost, people were just eating that up. So I've seen hate on Twitter before. Somebody will post a picture and they'll be like, Lauren Murphy's a fucking bitch. Look at her doing this. And I'm like, that's not even a picture of me. Like, that's not even me, or like Lauren steals dogs or something.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous that at some point you do have to be like, okay, none of this is my shit. I know I'm a good person. I make mistakes. I'm not fucking perfect, but nobody is. And I know I'm a good person, and I can sleep at night. The people that know me love me. I love my job. I love what I do. And yeah, the comments on Twitter, like, if it's good that they're talking about me. Like I said, I remember the days when nobody talked about me, and those were kind of boring and lonely days. So.
No, but people, they talk about the online comments, so you just have to ignore it and don't read it. But you're always gonna have that curiosity. Like you do, you in theory, you're like, I don't care what people say. But then you're kind of a little bit curious. And there was a time I was working for a YouTube channel, which was huge. Every episode I would do would get thousands of views. And all the comments, sure enough, everybody's shitting on me. They're finding, and they were finding everything. You'd see things, you're like, oh my God, like they'd be like, Lucas always does this or that. And you're like, God, do I do that? And then you spend the whole rest of the day moping, like, all these people are saying things about me. And then eventually you do reach a point where it's like, you just got to ignore them. Like, fuck them. Like, half of them are probably jealous anyways, because people are like, who's this kid talking to fighters? And I'm like, yeah, but this kid's talking to fighters and you're watching me do it. So, like, really, really, who's the loser in this situation? But people act like it's an easy thing. Read the comment and just blow them off. Like, nah, at the end of the day, people are human, and you're going to look at that stuff, and some of them might creep through and affect you.
Yeah, of course. And that's normal. Like, it's normal for us to hear stuff from our peers and let that affect us. Like, that's how humans are built. We're built to accept feedback and then respond to it. You know what I mean? And that's literally how we've gotten along for thousands and thousands of years. So it's not like it's weird to read those comments and feel depressed or feel angry or fucking want to go find Joe 05726. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And punch him in the face or whatever. But I don't know. I always wonder, like, I try to picture the people that leave comments like that. So I generally don't comment on, like, I wouldn't go to like LeBron James's status or something and comment like he's a fucking loser piece of shit or something like that. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? And I don't think I have any friends that would. I don't have any friends that comment like you suck under like a fight picture or something. And so I try to imagine what kind of person would leave a comment like that. And it's never good. It's never like some fucking hero that's, batting 1,000 and hitting it out of the park or whatever. Like successful people just don't do that. You're only going to be criticized by people doing less than you because they have time to criticize, So, but it's for me, like, I had a teenage son. He's 19 now, but he was 16 and 17 years old living in my house, and he was on the computer all the time. And sometimes he would make comments or do stuff on YouTube where I would just be like, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. you know and those are the kind of people that are like leaving comments, people that literally do not know what they're talking about.
Well, the crazy thing is, I was looking at the YouTube stats, right, trying to figure out like because I don't know if you're like this, but I always feel like people commenting are like my age, and then you sort of look at the stats and you realize like, nah, they're not your age. I was looking at like 40-year-old, 50-year-old people coming after me, and it's like that is so weird. Like I have grown adults who could be my parents, coming after me and talking shit. Like, what are you guys doing? Like it's so weird. You try to figure out who these people are, and it's like, wow, like you really these are the kind of people that are coming after me.
Dude, that's wild. Yeah, that's pretty. Do you think like it could just be kids that said they're 40 or 50 years old, like on their account profile?
Well, it's like, it's Gmail, right? Like, you put in your birth date and all that stuff. So, I mean, unless you really put that you're 50, but yeah, I mean, it would be weird. Like, why are, my grandparents coming after me on YouTube videos? Like, that's it's very strange.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know. The internet is a weird place. It's a bizarre place. There's so many social media channels now too. There's a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of feedback coming back at people.
But I do have to say on a more positive note, though, after our last interview, you had said something on Twitter about it that was super nice, and and it meant a lot too because when you talk to fighters, you don't know how guys turn off their phones. Like if it's like "ooh, glad that shit's over," or if it's just like, "cool, let me go about my day," or because you don't know, nobody's gonna tell you afterwards, like, "Bro, that was trash." Like, did you really ask me about my matchup? So when you said that, it meant a lot. And I also had a lot of people hit me up, like journalists, even other fighters, where it's like, "Hey man, I saw Lauren said something really nice and stuff." And it's like people took notice, and it did a lot. So I thought if I ever do get a chance to talk to you face to face or screen to screen, whatever you want to call this, I would say something about it because it did mean a lot when you said that on Twitter.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, right on. I'm glad to know it had a positive impact. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I've been guilty too of talking shit on Twitter and saying shit about people and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it's just so easy to like fall into that hate online, and it's so easy to hate on other people and you don't really have to fess up for your actions. So it's nice to know that I had some positive impact too. I mean, truly, like in the last couple of years, I really have tried to change my attitude, and especially online where it's easy, like we were saying, it's easy to be hateful. So but yeah, it's important, and like a good journalist that will give you a chance to speak and then not try to vilify you or humiliate you or force you into like a character that they want you to be for for media purposes. You guys aren't a dime a dozen. So I think the fighters appreciate it too when you get somebody that's just genuine.
Well, I think the thing is when you see some of those comments, like at first the way I wanted to respond is, Mark Hunt did like a famous Facebook message, right? I don't know if you saw it where he was like, "How about you get the fuck off my page, you fuckwit," or something. He went on this big message, and I kind of felt like that's how you want to respond to everyone. People be like, "You suck." It's like, "How about you get the fuck off my page, you fuckwit?" Like it seemed like for me, I wanted to put that under every comment, and then it's like, yeah, but how am I going to look professional wise if hey, this reporter is calling everybody a fuckwit and telling them to get the fuck off their page? Like I don't think that would have worked, but it would have been really satisfying though.
Right. Yeah. One time Mike Goldberg did it too. He like commentated a football game, and some people were just talking shit to him online. And so he started talking shit back. And I think he was talking shit to probably a couple kids, like probably a couple 12-year-olds were like telling him he sucked. I don't know. And so Goldberg was talking shit back, and he did. It was something along the lines of, shut the fuck up, or,
Yeah.
why are you following me or whatever. I'm sure it had a bunch of F-bombs, and it was basically just a big, fuck you. And, yeah, a bunch of people got on there and they're like, "How unprofessional." I'm like, the man is a professional trying to do his job. And yeah, but it happens to everybody. Like I said, I have a sports psychologist, and he's told me a lot of stories about like baseball players that get booed for like entire seasons. And these guys are really high level professional athletes, been doing it their whole lives. Yeah, he tells me a lot of stories that kind of let me know at least like I'm not alone when I'm getting that kind of hate. It really does happen to a lot of athletes, and it usually passes pretty quick.
Well, where are you at management wise in your career? I know at one point you did have a manager, then you were by yourself. Are you with a management team now?
Yeah, I signed with First Round.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Lou DeBono. So far I'm pretty happy. Like we're still in a pretty new relationship. And I told him when I signed with him that I was really uncomfortable about it. Just because I've had such bad experiences with like the managers that I've had, and he just I don't know, I was really really hesitant about it, but I did need help, like negotiating with the UFC and stuff. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, so I do need a manager. And yeah, my coach knows him. Bob knows Lou pretty well, and he manages Derek, and Derek doesn't fucking trust anybody, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, like we'll give it a shot. And so far I'm pretty happy with it. He's been real accessible to me. He's answered all my questions. Um, I don't have to worry anymore about negotiating, matchups or contracts or anything like that. Like I can let somebody else do all that, which is honestly a huge weight off my mind. And so, yeah, it's so far so good. I'll let you guys know. We're still new in our relationship, and you can bet if it doesn't work out, you guys know I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you. So.
Well, I will say, I've known Lou for I think a year or two now. We've set up interviews together. He's always been super nice to me. I know over the summer he even like checked out some of my interviews and gave me feedback, and I was like, wow, you really didn't have to do that. So I've always had a positive relationship, and I know he manages Jared Cannonier too, right? Who was at the MMA lab. So
Hmm.
from I've only heard good things from him. First round, like they have a pretty good reputation. Sometimes it gets a little weird, right? Because they have John Jones and stuff, but they seem like they've got a pretty good standing with a lot of people in the sport.
Yeah, I like that. Like they do know what they're doing. I like that they have a good relationship with the UFC, but they're not working for the UFC.
Right. Yeah.
There's a couple managers out there that are basically working for the UFC, and so guys sign with them, and yeah, they'll get you into the UFC, but I mean, you might as well not have anybody advocating for you once you're in there, And that's like it's a deep shark. It's a deep pool to be in. Without some kind of representation. So at least that's what I found out. That's what I found out from swimming around in there without a man myself. But yeah, like first round, I like that they know what they're doing. I like that they have a lot of like really high level MMA fighters on their roster. Yeah, so far so good.
How was it when you weren't without a manager? I imagine your DMs must have been flooded with like, "Hey, I manage so and so. Like, I'm gonna sign." Like, even guys who have a manager, they get flooded with messages. So I assume people saw you like, "Oh, free agent, let's go after it." You must have gotten a ton of like harassment from people trying to sign you.
At first, but then like I made it pretty clear, like, nope, I'm not signing
Yeah.
with. I'm not. Nope. Go fuck. Like everybody can fuck off. No. And so I think word must have got around pretty quick. So people actually left me alone for a really long time, and I honestly was so happy not having management, and I could just say yes to whatever. I think I accepted all the fights that the UFC offered me. I did a little bit of negotiating on my own, but it wasn't for anything major. Um, I got all my own sponsors. And so I just kept track of everything myself. I felt like I was in total control of everything, which I really liked. And so that is one thing, like being signed with Lou now, I don't really know what's going on. It really is hard for me to like trust that to somebody else. But yeah, so I loved not having a manager. Honestly, I really liked it. And during that time period, it worked out for me where I did get a lot of sponsorships on my own and stuff. So but we just got to a point where it was like I don't want to negotiate with the UFC on my own. I'm not good at it. I don't know what I'm doing, and they know exactly what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
that's obviously not a good spot to be in if you're trying to negotiate for yourself. And I don't ever want to tell Mick Maynard no. When Mick calls me with a
Yeah.
fight, to say yes. I want to be like, yeah, sure. And I want to take whatever like amount of money he's going to offer me. Like I want to, and I want to show up all the time and do whatever. Like I love my job. I truly do. And I want to prove myself. So obviously I need somebody to step in and be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's get the most for you out of this. So I understand that I need a manager, and if it's a necessary evil, then yeah, I'm going with first round.
Well, I saw something about the NBA where they were talking about the players, like the manager or the agent's job is to be the asshole, right? Like the player's this, super nice person. I love my organization. And then your agent's there to be basically the dickhead that's arguing on your behalf. You should get more money. He wants this, he wants that. But so you don't look bad for the organization. Like that's their job to, be the asshole. So like you mentioned, like you don't want to tell McMahon like give me more money. It's like, if anything, you want to have a good relationship. But your manager, he doesn't care about accepting a fight McMaynard gives him. Like he's got the ability to sort of be that asshole, get you more money and get you better fights. So I feel like it is important in that regard, like to have a guy who isn't scared to be an asshole. And if you're willing to say yes to everything, and so is your manager, how is that helping you? Like, why do you need a guy in between you if he's doing the same shit you're doing?
Thank you. Exactly. Need a guy to run back and forth between Mick and I and deliver fucking messages. Like Mick has my phone number. He can just call me himself to do that. You know what I mean? So exactly, every athlete needs some kind of representation, and they need separation between them and the promotion that is promoting them, because obviously we're going to have different interests in mind. Like my interests are going to be for, different than the UFC's for me, so.
Exactly. Plus, if they're like, listen, if we can get you to take 10K for 10K, like, then we're gonna go for it. That's when your manager's like, hold on, you're gonna have to add a couple zeros in there because
Yeah.
we're not taking no 10K for 10K. Like that's why it's important too. And especially you want to know that whoever you're signed with, like they know how to negotiate.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, that's one of the things I really appreciate about First Round is that they have been around for a while. They have a lot of like big athletes on their roster, so they do know what they're doing. They know how to get in there with the UFC. I feel like me, I'm so outclassed and outmatched by those guys, but First Round is not. So, yeah, there was another point that I had just thought of that I was thinking while you were talking about it, and I can't think of it now. I don't know.
So I am curious though, why? Because you said no to all the managers. Fuck off. How did First Round manage to be the ones that managed to get in there? Like I don't know how much you can say, but like, what was it about them where you're like, you know what? Maybe these guys would be the right people to help me further my career.
That Bob knew Lou, and Lou had helped. Like Lou had answered some of my questions. Like when I moved to Houston and stuff, I kind of started getting to know who Lou was. And Bob was like, "Hey, if you ever want to sign with a manager, sign with Lou." And I was always kind of like, "No, like, no, you think Lou is your friend, but no, guys are your friends."
Yeah.
And Derek liked him, and Derek doesn't really like anybody. And we had a couple questions along the way, like that, just little stuff. Like we asked him about like, do you know anybody that we could hire for a CPA? And he was like, oh yeah, I got a guy that was an accountant. Like does a bunch of fighters. He knows all the ins and outs of fucking UFC, blah, blah, blah. And so cool. All right. So that was just little stuff like that he would help us with. And then after this last fight, I have one fight left on my contract. And so it was time to renegotiate. I had won all the fights on my contract. I'd won 4 fights in a row. Like now we're talking about looking at the title. Like I feel I deserve a title shot. And I had a lot of people around me that were kind of like telling me, like, ask for this. Let's do this. You should do this. Like so-and-so got this. And that's hard to hear too. And then you start wondering like, am I getting screwed over? Am I getting,
Right.
And so anyway, I started trying to talk to the UFC about like there was like a fight with Cynthia that might have been on the table. There's like an alternate at the time. We were talking about being an alternate for the Jennifer Maia Shevchenko fight. We were talking about title shots. We were talking about a new contract. And I tried to kind of handle it all on my own, and it was just too fucking much. Like for about 3 or 4 days, we were kind of going back and forth with the UFC and like just didn't really understand the process of how these contracts work. I'm not really sure what the norm is for a lot of these contracts. The goals that I had, like I wanted to be an alternate for the Maya fight. I wanted some time between weight cuts to fight Cynthia again. Just stuff like that. Like I wasn't really sure how to ask for. I wasn't sure what the norm is. And so anyway, it just got to be this kind of fucked up mess. And it was really confusing. And the Cynthia fight got given to Chukagian, which was really a bummer for me because I did want a chance to like really prove my contendership and make another paycheck this year. So yeah, anyway, it was like it just got fucked up, and I was thinking about signing with Lou anyway. And so it kind of got to a point where I was like, okay, I think we just need to ask for help. And so I told the UFC, like, hey, just give me a couple days, like, and during that time period, I called Lou, and Lou was happy to help. And I got to meet him and Malky a little bit. And I've met Abe, Abe Kawa, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've met him before. I think he managed Brian Barberina for a while. So like, yeah. Anyway, I've heard good stuff from different people about at least all of those guys at some point. And, it really did help. Like once Lou kind of took over everything with the UFC, like I literally felt like a big weight off my chest. Like I didn't have to stress about it anymore. That's not the shit I want to be thinking about. I want to be thinking about, jujitsu and sparring and what I could do better in practice. I don't want to have to think about negotiations with the UFC. So just for that, I think it's worth it.
So before we wrap things up, though, how close are you to the title? I don't know how much you can reveal or who you've even been talking to about it, but are you think like maybe one contender fight away? Are you, short notice replacement away from the title? Like how close do you think you are to that?
The screen just went black. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we are. Can you repeat the question? Sorry, I heard part of it, but I got a phone call, so I had to silence it.
Yeah. I was saying, how close do you think you are to the title? Like, you think you're like a contender fight away, perhaps, stepping up on short notice if somebody falls through? Like, how close do you think you are to that title?
I think I should be next for the title. I think I've proven my contendership like 400% more than anybody else in the division had to prove their contendership. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've put together a really good win streak. It's over all top ranked opponents. All my opponents have been in the top 10 when I fought them, and all of them have had winning records when I fought them. Or I think Roxanne had like a record of like 3-3 or something like that when I fought her. That was her UFC record. But yeah, so I mean, these are all tough people that I have fought. I think I've been the underdog in a lot of these fights, you know. And then in the last one, like Shakarova was a little undersized, but it was a last minute matchup, and she's like some national champion wrestler. She was like 8-1. She's a champ at another promotion. So and I know people haven't really like talked about this, but if you look at my fights, this fight streak starting with Mara Barella, and you look at the next fight with Andrea Lee, and then you look at the next fight with Roxanne, and then the next fight with Lilia, it's like every fight I've gotten better and better and better and more dominant in these fights. You know, I went from like having a pretty close fight with Mara. I mean, I was able to get the finish, but it was close up to that point, to a split decision with Andrea Lee, to a super dominant decision over Roxanne, who is tough. And then I finished. I mean, I made it look easy with Shakarova. She didn't even land a punch. Do you know what I mean? I think people are really kind of, they're like discounting how much better I'm getting between these fights and how much better I'm looking in each fight, you know? And so anyway, I think I deserve a title shot. I think I deserved it a while ago, but I will keep proving myself however many times they need me to prove myself. I don't mind fighting. I love to fight. And if they did call and they were like, hey, we need you to fight a bear so that, you know, you can prove to us that you're actually title contention worthy, I would be like, well, fuck, okay. You know, because I do. I love my job and I'm excited to get back in there, but I feel I should be fighting the champion. I think they said they're going to give the title fight to Andrade next. And she has one fight. She has one fight in the division. Yeah. So that's a little irritating. I did ask to fight Andrade for contendership, but I think they said that she's going to fight for the title next. So I'm happy to be on standby and be a backup for that fight. And then I'll be more than happy to fight the winner.
All right, before we officially wrap things up, though, you have social media, I'm sure sponsors, maybe teammates, everything. If you have anything you want to shout out, anything you want to plug, now would be the time.
Yeah, so I train at a bunch of different gyms here in Houston. I train at Gracie Baja Katie. I train at Main Street Muay Thai, and I train at Henzo Gracie here in Houston and in Riverstone. So I train at a bunch of different places, and dynamic sports training for my strength and conditioning with Jimmy Kaiser. So I just want to say thank you to all of them for supporting me and all my teammates at all of those places. I get to work with a lot of killers around Houston. And also to Blackout Coffee. They've been super supportive, especially through the pandemic and everything, which is badass because their coffee is really delicious. So you should check it out. In fact, I'll send you a bag, Lucas, and then
Wow.
Yeah, hell yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So they're actually really, really good, and their website is in my bio on Instagram, and so you guys make sure you check them out too. They're badass.
There we go. Well, thank you so much for the time, Lauren. I really appreciate it. This was some really good stuff. I think people are going to learn a lot of good things from this.
No, thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on.